No, 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 no. Hello, world. Now I need to be crazy. I need to be like pumped up, or I don't know. Whatever. It's my first reaction video. I can do whatever I want. It's my channel. I can be cringe as much as I want. I just want to record a goddamn video finally. And today I want to learn if I'm a psychopath, because I have an idea that I might be. I might be not, but who knows? I'm pretty unique person, so maybe I will be a psychopath. I'm very happy about my headphones. I hope the microphone sounds very good, because that's why I bought those headphones, only because the microphone is very, very good. It's a Razer Black Shark V2 2023 edition. Let's go.
About you at all. 10 years of free educational content that benefits the world. No, you're just a view to me. You're a portion of a penny, a click that buys me doomer fantasy manga. And why would I feel guilty about that? Berserk is awesome. Does it make me a bad person? Maybe. I don't really care. And do you? There's 750 million votes for no. You need Psychopath Kevin as much as he needs you. And there we go. I just manipulated your curiosity for 30 seconds so YouTube will officially count you as a view. Because that's what a psychopath would do. Okay. I'm not a psychopath, or even close, really. I'll give you my score later, but you just got a glimpse into the manipulation of a psychopath. When we hear the word psychopath, we instantly think of serial...
I think, when I hear a psychopath, I think about a person that is trying to steal your pen. I mean, he's not really stealing. He's just like asking you, hey, can I take your pen? I need to write something down. And then he just doesn't give you back this pen, because he will think, okay, it doesn't matter. If he wanted, he could like ask me for this pen. He just doesn't care about other people, and that's it.
Killers and the most evil criminals in human history, and that's not entirely wrong. But the cardiac surgeon who saves your grandma's life might actually be more of a psychopath than John Wayne Gacy. I'm going to break down what a psychopath is and isn't with a few examples that'll show you whether you think like a psychopath. I'll show you the science.
By the way, the clown from Dead by Daylight was based on this person. Like, the devs took very big inspiration from him. But I don't really know who this guy is. I know he's just a serial killer.
Of how a psychopath operates, why he is what he is, and give you a detailed analysis of why someone the whole world considers to be a psychopath actually wasn't. Then I'll show you why it's so important that you turn into a little bit of a psychopath yourself.
Yes, because the world is a very hard and brutal place. You need to be a little bit of a psychopath. And by psychopath, you can translate to being psychopath, you can translate to being more egoistic, being more about yourself than trying to please other people around you.
First, here's how a real psychopath thinks. Dr. Kent Keel is one of the world's leading researchers on psychopathy. He's currently a professor of psychology, neuroscience, and law at the University of New Mexico, as he runs the lab at the Mind Research Network. But he got his start by interviewing and analyzing the brain scans of psychopaths in Canadian prisons, including one inmate he called Bob. In his book, The Psychopath Whisperer, he details one of Bob's criminal endeavors, hiking over the border from Canada to the United States to buy cartons of cigarettes to smuggle back to resell untaxed. Pretty standard, low-level...
Wait, rewind time.
Over the border from Canada to the United States to buy cartons of cigarettes to smuggle back to resell untaxed. pretty standard low-level crime stuff, but what Bob did to sell his smuggled smokes shows the difference between psychopaths and us. So let's consider how a criminal might unload his goods. The easiest solution would be to wholesale them to a middleman, and then that guy does the tedious work of selling each carton. It's not a bad solution. You'd make your money and then you're ready for another trip over the border. But a psychopath can do better than that. The obvious customer base for cigarettes is smokers. They're your target market here anyway, so you sell directly to all the smokers that you can find, then rinse and repeat. It makes perfect sense, but it wouldn't occur to a psychopath to do it that way. There's gotta be a more lucrative option, like selling to underage kids.
Oh my
They'd
God.
have a hard time getting smokes on their own, so maybe there's a thriving black market waiting to be tapped. And this starts to...
I remember this episode from Family Guy.
Gentlemen, we need to talk. My wife says you're trying to get kids to smoke.
That's just not true.
Well, what about this toy?
Peter, it's just a doll with a cigarette. I mean, Barbie has a dream car, but you don't see every 8-year-old kid driving. They're just fun toys.
Smoke.
Not now, Jerry.
a hint at a psychopath's lack of moral compass. He just wouldn't care that he was potentially doing harm to kids. But that's still not good enough for a real psychopath, and what Bob actually did demonstrates the psychopath's total comfort with serious depravity if it makes utilitarian sense. Bob's preferred customer was someone who couldn't walk into a convenience store and buy a pack, or even ask someone else to buy for them. Someone who really shouldn't be smoking. Someone who would be ashamed to be seen buying cigarettes at all, let alone actually smoking them. Someone who would pay way more money for the product than anyone else to avoid all those situations. Bob sold his cigarettes to pregnant women because they paid the most.
Oh my God. You're selling cigarettes to pregnant women. Like, I want to be a psychopath.
Not only did he never think twice about the consequences,
but look, like, it's worse selling to pregnant women. It's even worse than selling to children. But at the same time, selling to pregnant women is legal, but selling to children is illegal. So that's really fucked up.
or morals of it, but he was actually pretty proud of identifying the most vulnerable.
Or maybe selling cigarettes to children is worse. If I think about that. I don't know.
The most profitable customers for his smuggled goods. Bob was a true psychopath. But his callous, dispassionate approach and his total lack of any guilt is only a tiny portion of what constitutes psychopathy. The word itself is really good and really useless.
The psychopath just doesn't care about other people. Like, they don't care if something will hurt other people, if it will negatively affect them. The psychopaths only care about itself.
John Seabrook's 2008 article in The New Yorker was titled Suffering Souls for a Reason. That is literally what the breakdown of the word psychopath means. The awkward marriage of the Greek psyche, meaning soul, and pathos, meaning feeling or suffering. It's a great way to describe something so complex, and it also tells us nothing.
What do you mean? Psychopaths suffer inside, that's why they are only caring about themselves? I mean, it does make sense. I'm becoming very psychopathic sometimes when I'm at my worst moments in life. Then I feel like, oh my God, man, the life is so hard. I want to fucking kill everybody. You also have something like that? Only me? Okay.
The paradox with psychopathy is that we barely understand it despite psychopaths having always existed. Every tribe in human history has had a couple souls that just weren't quite right. The conscience that exists for everyone else, that moral code they operate within to play nice with the rest of society, it just isn't there for them. Psychopaths have a pattern of antisocial behavior that extends throughout their lives, and society has to find some way of dealing with it. The book of Deuteronomy is the 5th book of the Hebrew Torah. It was probably written around 400 BC, and here's how Deuteronomy dealt with an antisocial kid. If someone has a stubborn and rebellious son who does not obey his father and mother and will not listen to them when they discipline him, his father and mother shall take hold of him and bring him to the elders at the gate of his town. They shall say to the elders, "This son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey us. He is a glutton and a drunkard." Then all the men of his town are to stone him to death. You must purge the evil from among you. All Israel will hear of it and be afraid.
Yeah, that's a solution we need. Let's bring back that. I think this will really benefit our society today. I don't know, let's learn more about this topic because I'm not sure.
Yeah. This is one of the earliest, if not the earliest, mention of psychopathy, including several elements of the modern checklist we use to help identify psychopaths, such as clear patterns of irresponsible behavior, a history of juvenile delinquency, and a failure to accept
What the fuck means juvenile delinquency? Oh, okay. It means juvenile delinquency. Yeah, because you know English, so you understand. I don't.
responsibility for one's actions. It reflects how terrifying a psychopath is to normal people and how much of a disruptor they can be. So much that the takeaway was, better beat him to death with rocks. 100 years later, the Greek philosopher Theophrastus wrote Characters.
I mean, imagine we can't really have a person in society that acts like a real psychopath that only care about itself, because if we only have this kind of person, then the society wouldn't exist, couldn't exist, if everyone was for themselves. Society only operates because everybody has some, I mean, most people, right? It's not everybody because we have psychopaths, but most people care about each other and they help each other and they want to work together and not against each other. But if we have psychopaths, they really, I feel like they should be eliminated from our society. For example, we have mental asylums, right? Maybe psychopaths should be in mental asylums. But at the same time, like he said, the psychopath can be a surgeon, so I don't know anymore.
Which outlines 30 different moral types and their behaviors. One was the unscrupulous man, who shamelessly
I mean, they all look like psychopaths.
Cheats others and takes advantage of them. Part of what clinicians might now refer to as a parasitic lifestyle. From the Torah to
God.
Characters, we see bad people, but are they actually psychopaths? Maybe, but it's really hard to tell who's a narcissist or selfish.
Yeah, parasitic lifestyle. It's exactly the phrase that I would use to describe my cousin. And I don't want to say it's my cousin anymore because it's not my cousin. So I'm just gonna call him Bob. Okay? So the Bob. Yeah, he has a very parasitic lifestyle.
Or uncaring, or who's just neurodivergent. Hans Asperger himself initially called Asperger syndrome autistic psychopathy, and it's easy to see why Asperger used the term. Alexithymia is the inability to identify or communicate one's own feelings. Is it instantly obvious whether someone is alexithymic or that they don't even have feelings to communicate? What about the lack of social emotional reciprocity that's part of an autism spectrum diagnosis, or less nuanced facial perception? How do you separate someone who isn't very good at it?
This is too smart for me. I mean, maybe it's not that it's too smart for me, but I don't know what any of this means. It's like very science language, so come on.
Perception. How do you separate someone who isn't very good at it?
It's not my field of expertise. Oh, let's say it that way.
Someone who isn't programmed to care.
My field of expertise is gaming.
Hey, take these 5 words and rank them from most emotionally positive to most emotionally negative.
Okay, so from the happiest to worst: puppy, laughter, table, parking ticket, cancer.
Okay, for me, the list goes like this. It's totally possible that you rank puppy first because you love dogs, and
Yeah.
puppies bring you a sense of joy that's even stronger than laughter. That's totally valid, but the rest of the list seems pretty clear. A table is neutral. It's just a table. You really should not feel too positive or negative about a table, but the 2 negative words are different. A parking ticket sucks, but cancer is really bad. You wouldn't want either one, but a parking ticket is clearly preferable. Real psychopaths struggle to rank words in this fashion because to them, they're all pretty value-neutral words. There's no fine line between puppy and laughter, and even puppy and cancer. Whatever, they're both just things. Who cares? To a psychopath,
I wonder if there's like a scale, if there's a power level to being a psychopath. Like you can be a total psychopath who really doesn't understand the difference between those things, a puppy and a cancer. But maybe there is like a power level, and we have power level 1, the guy that just don't wanna give you back your pen, and then there's level 100, the guy that doesn't see a difference between puppy and the cancer, right?
it is what it is. The nuance we see in the world, all the little details that determine who we are, how we navigate life, and how we process what's around us is seriously dampened for a psychopath. But it's like that line in Wayne's World.
You know, I thought I had mono once for an entire year. Turned out I was just really bored.
Can you identify where common problems stop and psychopathy begins? Or think about this. Maybe a person with a long history of antisocial behavior is just a big jerk. All of that stuff is part of psychopathy, but on its own, it's insufficient to meet our current threshold of diagnosis. As humanity very slowly identified the worst among its own ranks, they still had to figure out what to do about them.
It's 2024, and still when I heard Among, I can't stop but laugh inside. Schmungus Among Us.
They stole my schmungus.
For hundreds of thousands of years, there was probably some version of the Deuteronomy solution. Just get rid of them. If not attack them physically, you shun them into exile. You eliminate the problem and negate the danger these people bring to your tribe's survival. The Yorubas of Nigeria called their psychopaths Aranakan, and the Inuit called them Kunlengeta. Psychopathy is not a modern phenomenon that's a consequence of our outrageously complicated lives. No culture has been immune. But here's a question. What if we could harness psychopathy to actually benefit us? In The Invention of Friends, I examined the concept of Dunbar's number. Anthropologist and evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar posited that we have a limited cognitive capacity for meaningful social networks. But in Kevin Dutton's The Wisdom of Psychopaths, Dunbar points to a popular early example of how people made use of the psychopath's liabilities. Viking berserkers. These were totally fearless warriors who fought in pure rage. Their brutality and savagery differed markedly, not only from the European soldiers who they encountered, but even from other Vikings. They existed on the fringes of Viking society. They were dangerous. So why exile your psychos when you can unleash them on your enemies?
That's a very good idea. Let's send psychopaths to army and let them make defend ourselves. Let's make them defend us. Yeah, that's all I want to say. The English is very hard, guys. It's not my first language. All right.
Maybe they were useful after all.
I understand more than I can speak, but I don't understand everything. Still, I have sometimes problems with words like the one we have earlier.
We couldn't scan the brains of berserkers in 900 AD, but if we'd subjected them to functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, we likely would have encountered a seriously malfunctioning amygdala. The amygdala is the almond-shaped brain region that's part of the limbic system I detailed in my pain video. We describe it as the fear center of the brain. When you look over the edge at the top of a building, your amygdala goes wild. You know not to lean any further. We're hardwired to process a snake with our eyes and
Cute, it's cute. I process the image and I think it's very wholesome. I like the snake.
instantly sound the alarm. Danger, get away. That's the
No,
amygdala
it's a hug. What are you talking about?
in action. It is an amplifier of stimuli to tell you what to do and what not to do. So, what happens when your amygdala just isn't very sensitive?
maybe it happens what I just said.
Kent Keel's early fMRI scans showed clear activity deficits in the emotional processing centers of the brain, including the amygdala and the anterior and posterior cingulate. They just weren't very responsive. When we think of psychopaths as being cool, calculated, and unemotional, this is one of the reasons why. And it also means you can be an incredible climber. The documentary Free Solo profiles Alex Honnold, a rock climber who doesn't use ropes or protective equipment. Free solo climbing
What the hell?
is being hundreds or thousands of feet up mountains using just your hands and feet. It's hard to believe anyone actually could do this, let alone feel comfortable with it, but scans of Alex's brain show that his fear center doesn't work like ours. If we're peeing our pants trying not to fall to our deaths, Alex is just looking for the next rock to grab onto. Is this the same physiological phenomenon that made Michael Jordan or David Ortiz such clutch performers in basketball or baseball? Are those guys immune to the pressure with their amygdalas just drinking a pina colada on the beach while ours would be exploding? Yeah, probably. And despite possibly sharing this particular quality with Ted Bundy, none of those athletes are a psychopath. So,
Who is Ted Bundy? There was a TV series named Bundy's, and it was a comedy. I remember watching it as a kid. This is not the same guy, right?
how does this work? You've got a unique amygdala, and at some point you're at a fork in the road where you either nail a 3 at the buzzer or start burying bodies in your backyard? Dr. Benjamin Rush was the preeminent physician of the early American era, and he was one of the first to recognize that something really different was happening here. He noticed that injury and brain damage could actually change one's behavior, seemingly shifting their internal moral code. In medical inquiries and observations on diseases of the mind, Rush describes a patient he had who exhibited what we would now call psychopathy. She was addicted to every kind of mischief. Her wickedness had no intervals while she was awake, except when she was kept busy in some steady and difficult employment.
I know this person. I watched it. I remember it. Yeah, that's the one. That's the girl.
Pain and regret and frustration and sadness, misery, turmoil and anger and madness, the smell of the garbage, the taste of despair. These simple things leave me walking on air.
Okay, I'm bored. My HD, full HD, 4K brain is bored.
In these cases of moral depravity, there is probably an original defective organization in those parts of the body which are occupied by the moral faculties of the mind. Okay, so is psychopathy inherently biological, psychological, or both? French physician Philippe Pinel called the phenomenon mani.
What's with his cheek, man? Why they draw him like this? What is going on? Did someone make a challenge to be the worst artist or what?
Sans délire, delirium without mania, because it encompassed the behavior of the severely mentally ill without presenting the obvious outward behavioral symptoms. All the bad behavior with none of the crazy. In 1835, James Pritchard refined Pinel's ideas by describing the condition as a moral insanity, absent of the impairments or delusions other patients exhibited. It took a full century of theories and research to take the general term psychopathy from meaning any illness of the mind into the focused definition we use today. In 1941, the psychiatrist Hervey Cleckley broke through the mask of sanity, which outlined most of the characteristics of psychopathy that we're still using now. Insincerity, lack of remorse, incapacity for love, no realistic life plan, superficial charm, and a dozen more. A list that goes way beyond simple sociopathy. We'd finally categorized a next-level derangement, the kind that defined the most serious outliers in criminal society, the mass murderers and the most unprincipled, immoral monsters. In the decades since, we've come to apply the term psychopath to anyone who has done something really, really bad. The kinds of things no decent person would seem capable of. But are they really all psychopaths? Who actually has a suffering soul and who is mentally broken in other ways?
League of Legends players. Yeah.
We're gonna diagnose and treat the disease, or maybe even prevent it, we gotta know the difference. Here's an interesting update. Now we can see it in the brain. Neurons in the brain generate tiny electrical fields that can be measured by electroencephalograms, EEGs. When you're hooked up to an EEG and presented with a stimuli, like a picture of Jaws about to bite you in half, you'll generate a pattern of electrical responses that can be graphed with peaks and valleys. The third...
Yeah, they show me a shark and I feel like, who was this? They would be like, what the hell is going on?
third positive peak generated is called the P3, and it correlates with your brain recognizing stimuli as being important. It's also basically a psychopath litmus test. Ken Keel conducted research using the oddball task. A series of tones were played for subjects, and almost all of them were the same pitch. But when a higher tone was played, the oddball tone, the subject had to press a button as quickly as they could. The results were incredible. Out of 81 inmates he tested, 97% of those diagnosed with psychopathy showed an extremely elevated P3 response. 0% of the non-psychopathic inmates had an elevated P3. This simple hearing test was almost perfect as a diagnostic tool for psychopathy. But what if you don't have an EEG machine handy and you're hiding from people who want to kill you? How you respond to a really perverse version of the trolley problem might give a clue. There's one version where a doctor sees a perfectly healthy patient with organs that could be donated to save the lives of 5 of his other patients. So does he carve up one completely innocent guy so 5 others can live happily ever after? That one's not too bad. I said really perverse and realistic. Imagine a
No,
family.
I wouldn't do it. Like, man, this is a horror movie material.
Is in the midst of a horrible, brutal civil war. The atrocities visited upon the Igbo people of Biafra in the Nigerian conflict of the late 1960s, or Khmer Rouge ravaging Cambodia in the 70s, or the massacres of Rwandan Hutus in the 1990s. 2 parents, a son, a daughter, and a newborn baby, are all hiding under the floorboards as soldiers search for them. The baby starts to cry. If the family is discovered, all of them will be killed. What does the mother holding the baby do? If she's a psychopath, she doesn't even think about what to do to save most of her family. Her baby is just an alarm that needs to be deactivated. In 1884, the R.V. Dudley and Stevens trial in England was actually pretty close to this concept. The yacht Mignonette wrecked and 4 men were stranded at sea. After 3 weeks of floating in the middle of nowhere, Tom Dudley and Edwin Stevens killed and ate a 17-year-old crewmate who'd become severely ill from drinking seawater. A German vessel rescued them, and when they were brought back to England, 2 of them faced trial for murder. And the
I mean, is this really something only a psychopath would do? I can imagine myself eating a dude because I'm starving to death at the middle of the sea, and also the dude is 70 years old, so he will die soon anyway. So like, you need to survive. Like, we can die. We all can die here, right? Or at least 2 of us can survive, for example. So it's not really that bad decision. It's not like a total psychopath because you just don't have any other options. Your 2 options are die or be a cannibal. I prefer to be a cannibal than die. Okay. maybe that makes me a psychopath. I don't know, but I prefer not to die. Okay.
Psychopath court ruled that necessity was no legal or moral excuse for murder. They were sentenced to death, which later was altered to a radically reduced 6-month imprisonment, which kind of sends a mixed message here.
Yeah.
Tom Dudley regretted nothing and never accepted the guilty verdict. Was he a cold-hearted psychopath worthy of being put to death, or was he a guy in a terrible situation just trying to stay alive? A century later, Jeffrey Dahmer killed and dismembered 17 men, including drugging them to allow for brain experimentation that would turn them into living zombies, and engaging in cannibalism of others. During a nearly 18-year period that overlapped much of Dahmer's activity, Theodore Kaczynski mailed 16 explosive devices.
I know this guy. I see some memes, but I don't hear the ring bell. I don't know. I know only he's bad, but what did exactly he do?
Devices almost indiscriminately, leaving 3 dead and 23 wounded. It wouldn't be wrong that overlapped much of Dahmer's activity. Theodore Kaczynski mailed 16 explosive devices.
Mailed? Oh, okay, mailed. That's what I didn't get. Yeah, can I make it bigger? Thanks.
Devices almost indiscriminately, leaving 3.
Yeah, sorry for not having subtitles. I forget.
Dead and 23 wounded. It wouldn't be wrong to describe either one's behavior as psychopathic, but are they both psychopaths? Forensic psychologist Robert Hare built upon Cleckley's psychopathy rubric to construct the Hare psychopathy checklist, which he further revised into the current PCLR, a 20-item inventory conducted through a structured 2-hour interview and a full review of one's case history. Each of the 20 items is scored with a 0, 1, or 2, depending on whether behavior is definitely not, somewhat, or definitely present. The checklist is meant to be comprehensive over the course of one's life, so if you've lost your temper a few times, that's not a marker of psychopathy. And a general rule is to score the questions independently of the big event that got someone locked up. I can't sit down with Ted or Jeff and run the PCLR interview, but I don't really need to because we've got so many hours of interviews with them testifying to every facet of their lives in their own words and testimony from a range of people close to them. When I'm done evaluating these two, you'll know what a psychopath is and isn't, and maybe you'll know who around you might be one. This year, I finally
Watching this video is a constant fight with my ADHD. I don't have ADHD. I only have symptoms because I watched a lot of TikToks yesterday. But I'm just gonna call it ADHD to make it simple.
started exercising, but my potato chip casserole dinner doesn't mesh with the workout routine. Thankfully, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit is delivering fresh, never frozen meals to my door. I really try to reserve my decision-making energy for making Vsauce 2 videos and offloading the what delicious healthy dinner should I make daily decision to Factor is an
If I had money, I would definitely order something like that, but I think it's very expensive.
no-brainer. Factor has plans like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Chef's Choice, whatever fits your own personal goals. And it's all dietitian approved. So whether you're trying to cut back on takeout or just want nutritious meals ready in 2 minutes without any prep mess or trips to the grocery store.
Because what do we have here? We have here beans, we have carrots. I mean, there's no more carrots because I ate them all. And we have peas. I mean the green one, like the pea, not the yellow pea, the green pea. And the beans were with tomato sauce. It doesn't taste very good, it doesn't taste very bad, but I hope it's healthy.
Factor is an unbelievable value and service. So head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code VSauce250 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Thanks to them for sponsoring Vsauce 2. That's factor75.com and code VSauce250 for 50% off.
But can I get this in Europe? Can I get this in Poland? Because I mean now I'm in Netherlands, but I will be coming back to Poland soon. But is there only... I guess this is only for Americans. At least this one company, right?
Your first Factor box. Number 1, glib or superficial charm. This describes one's ability to be likable, charismatic, and even alluring, pretty useful to entice victims. Ted Kaczynski had very little charm and a lifelong struggle with interpersonal relationships. Jeffrey Dahmer had enough charisma to get his victims and others to trust him.
He was very polite. I was somewhat surprised, I guess, at how cordial Jeff was.
But he wasn't a master at interpersonal manipulation throughout his life, and he didn't even have friends. So Ted 0, Jeff 1, somewhat present. Number 2, egocentricity or grandiose sense of self-worth. This can come off as narcissism or inflated ego. A psychopath is always the smartest guy in the room, and if he fails at something, it's never his fault. It's just bad luck. Ted Kaczynski probably was the smartest guy in every room. He had an IQ of 167, and he constantly ridiculed law enforcement and the FBI for being stupid.
If you use any common sense at all, you're...
What? Oh, you cuffed me, but like you could do better than that. Look how smart I am. Dude, if you were really smart, you wouldn't be cuffed, right? You were cuffed by stupid cops. What does it tell about you?
chance of getting caught are practically zero.
Jeff put himself on the same plane as evil he saw in movies, with delusions of grandeur that even involved Emperor Palpatine and mimicking his yellow eyes.
He really identified with the Emperor. He wanted like that mind control. He had those, yellow eyes. So Jeff actually found some place where he could get contacts that were yellow eyes.
Ted 2, Jeff 2. Number 3, prone to boredom / low frustration.
Yeah, he started role-playing too much.
Tolerance. Boredom seemed to be a theme.
He wasn't a psychopath. He was an actor, alright?
For Dahmer, and he sums up how he felt as an 18-year-old out of school, living at home and drinking all day.
Depressed, lonely, and bored, and confused, I'd say.
Ted, on the other hand, was pretty satisfied in his cabin.
Living in the woods, once you get adapted to that way of life, there's almost no such thing as boredom.
And Ted had no trouble completing degree programs in mathematics, first at Harvard, then master's and doctoral degrees at the University of Michigan. He was frustrated with pretty much all of society, though, and at not being able to hurt more people.
Frustrating that I can't seem to make a lethal bomb.
Jeff's lifelong pattern of boredom and frustration.
I'm so frustrated that I can't make a weapon of mass distraction. Am I right, fellas?
Frustration is clear.
Or am I
Ted's
right?
is more of a mixed bag. Ted 1, Jeff 2. Number 4, pathological lying and deception. Dahmer was pulled over by a cop while he had body parts in a garbage bag in the car, and he very naturally pushed emotional buttons to convince the policeman that he was just going to the dump in the middle of the night.
The officer asked what it was. He said, well, it's the garbage. My parents are breaking up and I'm alone and couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd get rid of the garbage.
Ted did engage in deliberate deception to avoid raising any suspicion from his neighbors.
Ted was sly because we would think he was holed up in his cabin, but...
I'm sorry I'm constantly doing this, but I'm sick. I know it doesn't look like it because I'm crazy and I act very energetic and I have a lot of energy, but I'm sick, I feel bad. But I'm a person that deals with being sick by don't think about it. I just like try to push the sickness away. I want to punch it. Yeah.
He was in Salt Lake. He would come back and stay in the woods until he got all scruffy again, and then we would see him. I think he planned a lot of that.
Ted exhibited a clear, consistent pattern of deception as part of his adult activities, but it was focused and controlled. So, Ted 1, Jeff 2. Number 5, conning / lack of sincerity. Dahmer lured many of his victims by offering them money to pose for his photography when he intended to drug them and assault them.
He would offer them money when they would let Dahmer take photos of them, but he'd say, you have to come to my apartment.
Ted was less of a manipulator, but he did use his family to his advantage.
I used to send a statement, a yearly statement to me and my brother.
Ted's mother would send him money. He would say, I've got some chest pain and they say I should have some tests, but I don't have the money, and would, in a sense, scam her into sending money, which he would then use to make bombs.
Ted 1.
What the fuck is this? It's like some fan fiction. I scammed my mother to make a bomb. What the hell, man?
Jeff 2. Number 6, lack of remorse or guilt. This one is...
Like, I saw more abstract things, I saw more crazy things, but I feel that the most things that I saw are like fake, right? It's fiction. But this is real, man. What's going on?
It's pretty interesting because Jeff Dahmer had what clinicians call insight. He knew what he'd done. He knew that it was wrong, and he knew why it was wrong, and he felt bad about it.
A lot of guilt, indecision over whether I should confess to it, talking about it, and
Break. I wanted a dance break, but there was no dance break, there was a recording break, because recording on Quest 3 is a pain in the ass. Let's go back to the video.
analyzing it shows me just how warped my thinking was.
When someone annoyed Ted, he'd do even petty things to hurt them and then celebrate it, like when some motorcyclist made too much noise.
After I figured I had about as much as I could take of that, I picked a nice rainy day when no one would be around, and I went over and took an axe to their cabin. I did them quite a bit of damage.
He went in and just destroyed their cabin and then took a poop in their tub.
What? Yeah, poop justice is not a thing. But Ted also kept a secret-coded journal with his thoughts, and he made it pretty clear that he didn't feel bad about the big stuff either.
I'm no longer bothered by having crippled this guy. I laughed at the idea of having any compunction about crippling an airline pilot.
For this one,
yeah, when you're walking around outside, you just really need to be careful. You don't really know if the person right next to you is a psychopath. You can think like, oh, whatever, I'm just walking here and nobody cares. I'm doing normal stuff. What's the worst that can happen? You can meet someone like that. I mean, there's a low chance, and maybe you shouldn't live according to that, but still, playing video games is pretty safe because it's much harder to it's even lower chance to meet a person like that.
1, Ted 2, Jeff 0. Number 7, lack of affect and emotional depth. Affect is the normal range of emotions we both recognize and feel. Psychopaths tend to be emotionally flat. Jeff sums it up.
I'm not even sure whether I was capable of a real sense of love even back then. Not even sure if I am now.
When a family member of one of his victims attempted to attack him physically at his trial,
He was cool. He kept control. I would have thought he'd jump up. He didn't. He just sat there. This is Jeffrey Dahmer under stress.
And Ted? Emotions just seem to be totally off his radar. This is one of the spots where pretty normal people can score some points, and there's some crossover with the autism spectrum, where it's perfectly reasonable that someone could have a limited capacity for the complex feelings and emotions that most people have. Ted 2, Jeff 2. Number 8, callous/lack of empathy.
The longer I watch this, the harder I think I'm not a psychopath. And I think that's good.
Empathy is hard to evaluate because it's so subjective between individuals and cultures, so how do you evaluate such a nuanced thing with a serial killer?
Okay, so I need to make a difference in my mind. There's psychopath and there's egoistic asshole. And those two things aren't the same. Okay, Michael? Okay.
I didn't seem to have the normal feelings of empathy.
That was easier than I thought. A psychiatric assessment agreed.
His personality pattern was of an individual who uses people, sees them as objects, does not have any empathy. My recommendation really said that this person is too dangerous to be in the community.
Ted had no qualms about injuring or killing innocent people, even the ones who weren't his intended victims, and he also didn't care about being cruel to his own brother.
Couldn't wait to tell my big brother about my ideas, but it seemed like, wow, he was very dismissive of my ideas. And he said, you know, Dave, real smart people have a sadistic streak.
Ted 2, Jeff 2. Number 9, parasitic lifestyle. Dahmer lived with his father and then his grandmother for most of his adulthood. He used their houses for several of his assaults as he worked low-level jobs. Only in the last year before his arrest did he live on his own in an apartment. Ted really didn't depend much on anyone else. He saved up enough money to buy land in Montana, and although he occasionally took advantage of his parents' financial generosity, it probably wasn't enough to get him any points as a parasite. Maybe enough for a 1. Ted 1, Jeff 2. Number 10, short-tempered / poor behavioral controls. Though he wasn't often enraged, Jeff ultimately had no ability to control himself.
Dahmer took a barbell from a weight set and hit Stephen Hicks over the head with it.
I don't know exactly why I hit him, except I wanted to stay with him.
Ted was pretty in control of himself. Everything he did was methodical, and he played the long game. Rather than giving into flashes of anger, he spent nearly 2 decades playing a chess game with the federal government. But he exhibited some really strange behaviors, like when he pointed a gun at a neighbor's child playing in the woods.
And I thought it was a mountain lion, and so I told her it was time to leave, but it turned out it was Ted. He had a gun on her.
So yeah, it was not like he was always in control. Ted 1, Jeff 2. Number 11, history of promiscuity. Ted was pretty much an incel, so that's an easy 0. He was concerned about technology and his theories on its destructive effects, and the ladies did not factor into that. Jeff's life from his teens onward was tainted by his paraphilia and doing whatever he could to fulfill his desires.
The underlying force, I think, was obviously a warped sexual drive.
Ted 0, Jeff 2. Number 12, history of early behavioral problems. Psychopaths tend to have prominent behavioral issues from an early age, from physical assaults to theft to the sadistic, emotional, and psychological treatment of others. Ted's brother described him as detached, which his mother blamed on the mysterious treatments given to him during a hospitalization in his infancy, but otherwise, just a little weird. Jeff's interest in animal parts probably went into unnatural territory, and even in his teens, he was conspiring to victimize people and not just thinking about it.
He sawed off a bat for a weapon to knock the man unconscious.
He had hid behind a tree.
The jogger he was targeting didn't run by that day, but it demonstrates how early Jeff was engaging in seriously antisocial behavior. Ted 0, Jeff 2. Number 13, lack of
I feel like those people just lack the perspective of the other person.
Realistic long-term plans. Ted enrolled at Harvard when he was only 16, then went to Michigan, and then was a professor at UC Berkeley as he saved money to move to Montana, where he then engaged in a carefully planned 18-year campaign of wreaking havoc. Now, most of Ted's life plan wasn't good, but he was realistic and did exactly what he set out to do. Jeff drank for a while, then did a few months at Ohio State and dropped out, then went into the army and got kicked out, and then worked his night shift chocolate factory job in between getting booked for acts of public lewdness, assault of a minor, and no real life plan there. Ted 0, Jeff 2. Number 14, impulsivity. Ted Kaczynski spent most of his time thinking before he acted.
Man, Jeff is gonna win this one unless Ted will do some huge comeback.
Total opposite of impulsivity and the total opposite of Jeff.
My thoughts obviously weren't the thoughts of the sane person at the time. I would have rather he had stayed alive, but strangling seemed to be the way to keep him.
Ted 0, Jeff 2. Number 15, irresponsible behavior. Ted didn't really engage in the sorts of everyday behaviors we'd call irresponsible. Not like Jeff's habitual drunkenness, which landed him his army discharge.
His father and Sherry, his soon-to-be stepmother, came back to the house. There wasn't much food in the refrigerator. Alcohol bottles were around. it looked like a life that was in trouble.
Ted 0, Jeff 2. Number 16, frequent marital relationships. Yeah, no, so this is a quality of many psychopaths, a perpetual cycle of serious relationships and often having kids they end up distant from or completely detached from. Ted didn't have any romantic relationships to speak of. Jeff had one, Tony Hughes, who he ended up killing. But to give you an example of how bad Ted was at wooing the ladies, he sent 3 letters to a waitress. One inviting her to be his squaw in Canada, a second one with a resume of his academic credentials, and a third one kind of...
Man, this is not at all like an anime. This is not a cool villain. It's just fucking disgusting.
shaming her for not being interested in dating him. Ted earned his 0. Ted 0, Jeff 0. Number 17, history of juvenile delinquency. Formal contact with the juvenile criminal justice system wasn't part of either man's childhoods. Neither child was normal, but there wasn't an obvious pattern of criminal behavior that would have tipped off anyone, even their own families. This one is really tricky with Jeff. He probably gets a point here for going way past normal scientific curiosity with his taxidermy, and which was glossed over because he hid it so well in the family shed and because it wasn't really obvious how to get him professional help back then.
He became interested in the internal organs.
It's a morbid interest, obviously. Roadkill, dogs, possums.
Kids slicing up animals is now considered a well-known red flag. Ted 0, Jeff 1. Number 18, revocation of conditional release. Ted was never charged.
There was a show like that. It was called The End of the World, and I think they were trying to make a main character look like a psychopath. But after watching this video, it probably wasn't a real psychopath. It was just a messed up kid.
Or arrested with a crime before the FBI finally identified him as the Unabomber and hauled him in. But Jeff was a known quantity to Milwaukee police in the 1980s as a series of offenses like public indecency, lewdness, and inappropriate contact with minors. He kept offending even after getting slaps on the wrist, and his offenses actually got more frequent and more severe. Ted 0, Jeff 2. Number 19, failure to accept responsibility for own actions. Ted accepted responsibility for his actions and justified them as the necessary execution of his political philosophy. He knew what he was doing, and he accepted those consequences, so much that he refused to let his lawyers enter an insanity plea as
Oh my god, I am feeling worse and worse every minute now. When I wake up, I was like, oh, I'm not sick anymore. I feel good. It was just a little bit of a nose inside. My nose was blocked, but right now I'm feeling worse and worse. I hope I will be conscious for the next at least 20 minutes so we can watch this to the end.
He thought it would undermine his arguments. Jeff less so. He indicated that he was sort of a passive vessel for his actions.
I wondered why I was compelled to do the murders.
He knew what he did was wrong, but he didn't feel like he was the one doing it. And this is a really tough gray area because it's nearly impossible to sort out his exact level of culpability.
He had already confessed, so I knew Dahmer didn't have a defense. So I said to him, "What do you want me to do?" He said, "I want to know why I am what I am."
Ted 0, Jeff 1. Finally, number 20, many types of offenses. Ted engaged in one type of offense over and over. He had ideation.
Now this is some anime shit. He killed all those people. He created so much evil in the world. But at the end of the day, he doesn't even understand why he did it. Like, he just wants to understand why he is such a monster. What the hell, man?
Of others as a younger man, but psychopaths tend to do damage in a lot of different areas. They hurt people physically, they steal, they engage in fraud. The PCLR gives a score of 2 when there are 6 or more types of offenses present. Jeff's criminal behavior was much more varied than Ted's and involved a range of different offenses. By now, you know all the details here enough to know his score. Ted 0, Jeff 2. Okay, when we add up the totals from all 20 inventory items, Jeffrey Dahmer scores a 33. The minimum score for psychopathy is 30, so he qualifies. This is not very surprising, but it should. He qualifies. 3. The minimum score for psychopathy is 30, so he qualifies. This is not very surprising, but it should.
That is a really 30 is a very big amount of those points.
Could be because some people get perfect scores of 40. That means there are psychopaths who check even more boxes on the PCLR and some more severely than Jeffrey Dahmer, the guy who cooked and ate a whole bunch of Milwaukee wasn't even a peak psychopath. Conversely, the man who waged a 2-decade war against airline executives, scientists, and anyone around them all throughout the United States, he scores a 13. He wasn't even close to being a psychopath, but something was clearly very wrong.
Yeah,
His
exactly. Like, okay, he isn't a psychopath, but what does that even mean? Like, okay, it's just a medical term at this point. Okay, this guy is a psychopath from the medical point of view, but from the human point of view, from a social point of view, both of them are fucked up. Both of them are just out of the line psychopaths, right?
Diagnoses are disputed. One psychiatrist who examined him diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia, while a forensic psychiatrist suggested he had a schizotypal personality disorder. What?
Like, imagine calling this guy psychopath and someone is like, no, he only got 13 points. He is not a psychopath. He's not even close to that. Bruh.
Whatever psychiatric disorders Ted Kaczynski suffered from, it wasn't psychopathy. By the way, the average North American male scores about a 4 on the PCLR. It's pretty normal to have a few quirks or negative qualities. I had an independent analysis done to get my own score. I got a 2, which is 2 more than 0. So obviously we got a sense of Jeffrey, which is I had an independent.
I need to do this. I want to know, does he like have a link for that? Glebe and sacrificial charm. I don't even know what this means. Okay, now can I make it bigger? Kurwa mać. How I will make it bigger? Oh my god. Oh my god. No, I'm not. Glebe and suspiciously charm. Second one is yes and no. Because it's like, okay, sometimes I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm on top of the world, and I'm like, oh, so fucking good, and sometimes I feel like I'm total garbage human being. So I don't know if this qualifies to 1 point. I have a TikTok for that. Oh, here it is. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. So I guess this doesn't qualify. So 0, 0, lack of remorse or guilt, 0. Calsus Descent, lack of empathy, 0. Pathological like, 0. Cadigat manipulativeness, 0. I'm like opposite of that. I'm very honest and I do as best I can to not manipulate people. Shallow affect, I guess it's 0. Impulsivity, 0. I mean, sometimes I buy skin in Fortnite that I shouldn't. But other Other than that, sometimes I like really long think about before I buy something, so I guess it's still 0. Poor behavioral controls, 0. Need for simulation, 0. Or maybe I need simulation. Like I really like playing Beat Saber, for example. Sometimes I like to drink or weed. I'm in Netherlands, it's legal here, okay, you understand me. But I would no, because I'm at the same time I like going to a walk for 1 hour without any music, and like I'm always depriving myself of a stimulation. I feel overstimulated more than anything. I like stimulation, but not too much of it, so I guess it's 0. Irresponsibility. I'm very responsible. Okay, guys. Like, early behavior problems. 0. Antisocial behavior as an adult. I am a little bit antisocial, but that's only because... but that's only with people I don't really like or respect. If there's someone I want to socialize with, I don't have any problems with that. So 0. Parasitic lifestyle. Okay. I don't know if it counts, but okay. 1. So we have 2 points. Sexual promiscuity. Lack of a realistic long-term goals, 0. Failure to accept responsibility for own actions, 0. Juvenile delinquency, 0. Breaking parole, what is it? What does it mean? It's too small. 0. Criminal versus what? 0. Okay, so I have I guess 2 points, but okay, I don't have, I'm not irresponsible. I was irresponsible, but now I'm the opposite of that. And parasitic lifestyle, also no, at least right now, because I have a job, okay, and I think about, like, for example, my family. I don't want them to put money towards me so I can sit at home and play games. I also think about it. I would say I'm fucking 0, man. I was thinking at the beginning of this video that I can be a fucking psychopath, but I'm the opposite of that. I'm at 0. Guys, I want to be evil. I don't want to be good. It's hard to be good, okay? don't care about anybody, but I do, and it's pressuring me too much. I feel the weight of my actions. Everything I do is like I'm thinking about other people. Like I really would want to be a more egoistic person, but I fucking can't. I want to be an asshole, but I am not.
Independent analysis done to get my own score. I got a 2, which is 2 more than 0. So obviously we got a sense of Jeffrey Dahmer's psychopathy a little too late. But what are the options when a psychiatrist diagnoses psychopathy? Is there any way to treat it? First of all, think about what psychotherapy is. The patient is the center of a doctor's attention, with a captive audience solely concerned with whatever the patient says. That is a fantastic scenario for the psychopath. Those situations are exactly what he feeds off of. And yeah, it's usually a he. Female psychopaths occur about 10% as often as males do. And how can the therapist be sure the patient is telling the truth when he's likely to be a pathological liar? It's extremely delicate. If therapy isn't done right...
Yeah, guys, this whole thing, like what I said, it was because I'm a pathological liar. I was like everything. What I say was wrong, and I have 40. That's the real plot twist, guys.
It can make a psychopath worse. The best approach is to identify psychopathic behavior in youths and intervene early. That's possible with a modified youth checklist for the PCLR, like kids.
You know, it's like a paradox because I feel evil sometimes. Because, like, I do something that I think I shouldn't because it hurts someone and I feel like, oh, now I'm evil. But that's really a paradox because that's the opposite of being evil. When you knew that your actions are wrong, then you're not really evil because you understand that your actions are wrong. The psychopath doesn't really care, doesn't really think about that. So yeah, it's a paradox.
Kids in high school tend not to have frequent marital relationships, and the Mendota Juvenile Treatment Center in Wisconsin has made serious progress with high scorers. They use a decompression treatment model named after the gradual transition of divers rising back to the surface, and it slowly pulls them out of the strictest incarceration, like solitary confinement, and into the normal general population as they go through a host of tailored mental health interventions and cognitive behavioral therapies. It seems to work. Serious violent offenders reduced recidivism by half, and the overall group was less likely to engage in violent felonies, and even the kids who did reoffend were out longer before they did. A cost-benefit analysis in the Journal of Research in Crime and Delinquency showed that for every dollar Wisconsin spent on MJTC's interventions, the state saved $7. But what if we don't want to treat psychopathy at all? That doesn't sound like a serious question, but it's a very real argument. In The Wisdom of Psychopaths, Kevin Dutton quotes one of the UK's top neurosurgeons. "I have no compassion for those whom I operate on. That is a luxury that I simply cannot afford. In the theater, I am reborn as a cold, heartless machine, totally at one with the scalpel, drill, and saw. When you're cutting loose and cheating death high above the snow line of the brain, feelings aren't fit for purpose."
That's also some anime shit, like, man.
Emotion is entropy and seriously bad for business. I've hunted it down to extinction over the years.
Like, but that's a positive. Like, okay, the guy maybe is a psychopath, but so the psychopath can be good and can be bad. If the psychopath is saving tons of life because he's so good at being a surgeon, because he doesn't really care about the patient, he can use it for good. What the hell, man? What's going on?
It's like Alec Baldwin, the surgeon in Malice, saying,
You ask me if I have a God complex? Let me tell you something. I am God.
That's admittedly an extreme example, but do you want your heart surgeon to be emotionless and cold as he cuts you open?
Yes.
Or do you want them to worry that if they screw up, they'll turn your kids into orphans?
No, I want him to be emotionless because it's his job. He knows he needs to fix me. Like, it's his goal, okay? And it doesn't really matter if he cares about me or not. He just wants to do his job good. So if he's emotionless, it's better because his hand is not gonna shake. If there will be some accident, he will just calmly try to stop the further damage. And yeah, I want to be operated by the emotionless psychopath rather than a regular doctor. I guess the psychopaths are better doctors, right? I mean, probably it also depends, like everything, but let's go.
Sweaty, shaky hands and scalpels are a bad combination.
Yeah,
Dutton
exactly.
argues in his book that some qualities of psychopaths are actually extremely desirable. He calls them the 7 deadly wins. Think about this in the context of the psychopath.
7 deadly wins. Oh my
The
god.
7 deadly.
That is so fucking cool, man. Ruthlessness, charm, focus, mental toughness, fearlessness, mindfulness, action. Oh my god, that is so cool. So maybe I am a psychopath, but the cool one. I mean, not the cool one, a good one.
Text of the psychopaths I've talked about, like cigarette smuggler Bob and Jeffrey Dahmer. Ruthlessness. How many times have you not gotten what you've wanted or even what you've needed because you didn't fight strongly enough for yourself? You gotta do what you gotta do. Would you prefer a political leader who gets bullied or one who ruthlessly advocates for your best interest? Charm. Charm is great when people like you, everyone gets along, and it's easier to persuade them. In a study ranking professions of the highest scores on the psychopathy index, salespeople were number 4. And
CEO Bobby fucking Kotick, you hear me? Fucking psychopath? Oh my god.
Journalists were number 6. Where are those careers without the same kind of charm that Ted Bundy used to impress dozens of women? Focus. Focus is really interesting. Stanley Rockman researched the heart rates of decorated bomb disposal operators while they were in the field. When the very best...
Man, at the same time, I don't want to be a psychopath because I'm worried I could be a bad person, but at the same time, I want those positive traits like being focused, being charming, fearless, yeah.
Operators entered a state of danger, their heart rates didn't just remain stable, they went down. They were so focused on the task and so unaffected by the danger that they were actually relaxed. What would your life be like if the things that should stress you out actually calmed you instead? Mental toughness. A psychopath does not feel anxiety. There's just nothing to be anxious about. They're incredibly resilient, including not being bothered by imprisonment. To them, it's just whatever. Where would you be if nothing ever got to you? Fearlessness. Do you want to be fearless? Or a better question,
I think like you need a little bit of fear in your life, because if you I just look at the face, man. You need a little bit of fear in your life, because if you really don't fear anything, you would just lay down and really you wouldn't do shit.
Are there people around you who really should be? Here's an example. If you live in Uvalde and your kid's sitting in chemistry when you get the phone call of your nightmares, do you want the police officers outside to have the fearlessness of a psychopath, or be too scared to save your daughter?
For fuck's sake, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mindfulness. Imagine always being cool, calm, and collected, having a permanent sense of mental clarity, free of any interference from negative or irrational thoughts. Just you, present, all the time, with the mindfulness of a Buddhist monk. Action. CEOs and lawyers rank number 1 and number 2 on that list of psychopathic professions because taking action matters to their success. They're decisive, they're confident, they don't second guess themselves. If you had to hire someone to run your company, would you want them to be like Steve Jobs or the really nice old lady at your local library? Sorry, Myrtle. The trick with all of these qualities, Dutton's 7 deadly wins, is to be able to control them. It's deploying them strategically, so you're ruthless at the negotiating table, but not at the
Yes,
dinner
exactly. That's what I wanted to say, because the longer I live on this planet, I'm 24 by the way, the longer I live, I see that there are no golden rules in life. There's like everything depends. Everything is you can't say, for example, that there is a phrase there is a saying that at least in Polish, that the talking is silver, but the silence is gold. So it means that you shouldn't really be saying stuff when you shouldn't. You should stay silent and, for example, listen to somebody wiser. But you can't take this rule and apply it to everything. You need to take this rule and apply it only to certain scenarios when it will benefit you, or it will make a world better around you, right? And everything is like that. Should you be more empathetic or more egoistic? Also, it depends. Because if someone is has so much empathy that it ruins that person's life, I would say, man, you need to be more egoistic. You need to think more about yourself. But if someone is asshole and doesn't really think about anyone other than themselves, I want this person to get more empathy. But also at the certain situations, you need to use your knowledge as tools, not as some fucking rules to everything, because life is too complicated, life is too complex. Sometimes you just need to stand up, for example, for yourself, and then you need to do an opposite of a silence, right?
Table. It's having a knob on each one where you can dial it up or down depending on the needs of the situation, and never cranking it up to 11 beyond your control, because we know those same cops that you want to be fearless can overdo that with catastrophic results. You want to keep an open mind, but not so open that your brain falls out, and you do want to be charming and charismatic, but not to the point where you're faking it and people start thinking you're a snake. If you handle each of these qualities right, you've got superpowers. And if you don't, you'll be sitting in a cell in a supermax. This is the terrifying beauty of psychopathy. It's our brain's most dangerous game, and there's so little room for error. Maybe it's so dangerous that you don't even want to play it, and maybe you don't want anyone else to play it either. If we can identify psychopathy and somehow cure it, a tremendous proportion of the world's most serious problems would go away instantly. Murders, violence, fraud. About 4 out of every 5 psychopaths in the United States are in prison because their behaviors put them there. Psychopathy is tied to some of the most destructive, heinous behaviors in society, and wouldn't preventing serial killers...
The best... Oh my god, why am I... Every time I pause, there's some stupid fucking face on the screen. Why? There was a episode, and it was an episode of Black Mirror, because it was based on the Black Mirror. It was made by a Polish YouTubers, I guess, because that was a group of Darwins, they called themselves that, I think. They were making episode based on the Black Mirror, when the mother was anticipating a child with her husband, and the doctor, it was in the future, and the doctor said that the child would be a psychopath, and or it would be just evil. I don't exactly remember, but they would need to separate the child from the mother and father and put them in the special facility, so he can live there and don't create threat to anybody around them. And then the mother was like, oh my god, what are we gonna do, right? They deleted the child. Okay, it wasn't born, but later it turns out that the test was wrong and the child would be normal. And it was like, oh my god, technology is so scary because there was a fucking error. Man, you know how many errors destroy day-to-day life of like so many people right now? Technology this can get an error and someone can be fucking destroyed because of that. I hate fucking stuff like that, being scared of the future and technology. because there is like one scenario very specific that can make you see this stuff as something bad. But if we had that technology, I think what we could do, we're like taking someone was born, and we're taking their brain scan, we're taking their DNA test, right? And then we could, for example, okay, this is a psychopath, right? So we should, as a society, put this person at the position, give them special learning, special raising, so this person doesn't become a criminal, and it will become a surgeon, right? And it will become a soldier, and it will become a policeman. It will become a psychopath that will provide society with right things, and it will not be in jail, and it will benefit everyone, the psychopath and the society. I think that's the best solution for that, and maybe in few years we will be able to do stuff like that, I hope. But it's fucking funny that people that don't really understand stuff like that, they don't understand how many positives we can get from knowing what your child will gonna be born like. They close their eyes and they don't see, they don't care. They only see this one particular scenario that will be bad, and they're gonna create a whole YouTube video about how scary and bad technology is. What the fuck, man? Like, I don't like Black Mirror. I watched few episodes and I feel like basically every episode is like that. Instead of trying to show what good comes out of this technology, they focus on just few examples of injustice, of unfairness, and they're trying to sell it to you like, oh my god, the future will be so fucking bad. They try to sell you fear, basically. But the technology will solve more problems than it will create. Okay, even if there will be few problems that this technology will create that are shown in the Black Mirror, for example, it's just unfair to this technology, because it's just unfair to this technology, and people are scared of progress because of stuff like that. And people shouldn't be scared of progress, they shouldn't be scared of technology, they should embrace it, and we should go fucking full cyberpunk, science fiction. I want to have my legs, arms fucking metal, I want my eyes to be cameras, I want everything cybernetic. My dick could be fucking huge. I mean, it is huge, but it could be even bigger. It could be like, I could extend it to my will, you know? I want the small one this time, I can. I want the big one this time, I also can. Like, man, I also hope, but the camera is good. You see me very well. We will see.
Or domestic abuse be incredibly useful? Let's say we hit a point where an fMRI scan takes 30 seconds and is cost-effective enough to be part of your annual physical. If your doctor could screen everybody for psychopathy, then what? Should someone with a PCLR score above, say, 20 be obligated to disclose that to their neighbors, employers, and domestic partners for everyone's safety? Or is that a violation of their individual rights and effectively making them pay for crimes they haven't even committed yet? Should gun owners have to pass a PCLR? And should brain surgeons have to fail it? What's the level of culpability for a criminal who is a clinically suffering soul? How responsible is he for the terrible things he's done when his amygdala couldn't terrify him, he isn't programmed to feel any guilt, and his entire world is a utilitarian calculation of value? If we could identify genetic markers for psychopathy in the womb, should the pregnancy be terminated? It could spare us from serial killers, and it could also wipe out a generation of visionaries. 80% are already locked up. but that other 20% that remain have found a way to be integrated into society. They're the lawyer who successfully defends a grieving mother from a homicide charge when the problem was actually sudden infant death syndrome. They're the fireman who ran into your neighbor's burning house and dragged his kids out safely through the flames. They make the UFC amazing entertainment. And they helped give you the phone or computer you're watching this video on. They're our berserkers. When James Fallon was studying brain scans to identify psychopathic behavior, he found one that had several clear markers of psychopathy. When he looked up the scan's reference number, he discovered the scan he was reading, the one with...
Oh yeah, I forgot I can do that. I'm using the power of my mind.
Clear proof of psychopathy was his. They take the incredible risks none of us are willing to take because it simply doesn't bother them if they fail. They're the nurse whose heart rate goes down when you're rushed into the ER after a car accident. They've been to space, and the next ones will be on Mars. Because normal people don't have the temperament for those kinds of greatness. We need the world's most dangerous people to push their aberrant qualities to the brink of psychopathy and then barely catch themselves before falling off the edge. The most outrageously destructive psychopaths are household names, and they get lurid documentaries on Netflix.
That's
but
fucking
about
powerful.
1% of people are clinically psychopathic. That's about 80 million psychopaths worldwide. And it means that about 45,000 of this channel's subscribers are psychopaths. How many of you are hiding in plain sight, walking around wearing your mask of sanity, tiptoeing the tightrope of supervillain or superhero? And how many of us would ever even know? And as always, thanks for watching.
Like, I would love nothing more than to kill someone in the ring. Nothing more. To make me super happy. I would own that too. I don't know if it'd make me liable. I might have to say I'm sorry if the cops came, but own it, man. Be a psychopath. It's fun.
See you later.
That was hard video, man. That was something. Oh my god. This dude, go subscribe him. Maybe I should say that at the beginning, not at the end, but Vsauce 2. Why he's calling himself Vsauce 2? Isn't like there's a copyright or something? Isn't Vsauce the original nickname? I don't know. man, that video was strong. That was powerful stuff. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I think about myself as someone different. I don't know if I'm better than anyone, but I'm definitely different than most of people. And I want to do with being... I want to do something with being different. I want to be great at stuff. I want to show everybody how cool I am. Maybe those are just daydreams of a young man that is fucking stupid, and I'm the opposite of that. Who knows? We will see. We will see how this YouTube channel will go, how my life will go. I need to remember that on YouTube you need to entertain people, and I can't really... I shouldn't be really saying stuff like that, at least according to us Mongols. But I also think that I'm interesting because of that, and maybe because I'm interesting, showing myself is a good option, because if you're talking about your life and you're fucking boring, maybe you shouldn't say it on YouTube because it's not entertaining. But if you entertain people because you're so interesting that the other people will find it entertaining, maybe you should show yourself. I need to be careful what I share with people to not get the wrong impressions about me, because I can really say wild shit sometimes. Like, and it's not like Dante's when I'm half joking. No, I say really weird stuff and I really mean it. But for example, later I think again about this stuff and I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck I was talking about? Why my thoughts are so fucking evil? Like, I wouldn't do shit like that, but sometimes I feel like I would do something without a problem and I wouldn't have any guilt or remorse. Sometimes I feel like a fucking crazy person. But yeah, thanks for watching. Links in the description for the guy's video, and see you again. Bye.